Late at night, the grand mansion on the hill was enveloped in silence, its sprawling halls dimly lit by flickering sconces. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, shattering the stillness of the night. William Carter, the head of the household, frowned as he glanced at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. No one ever visited at this hour, especially not in such a secluded place. When the thick wooden door creaked open, a man stood outside. He was impeccably dressed in a black suit, his demeanor polished, yet chillingly composed. His face carried a calm intensity, and his piercing eyes seemed to hold unspoken truths. "Good evening. I'm Jonathan Blake, the butler you hired," the man said in a deep, steady voice. Carter hesitated. It was true that he had arranged for a new butler through an agency, but the man's arrival at such an odd hour was unsettling. At this time of night, Carter asked, suspicion in his voice. Jonathan replied without missing a beat. "I wanted to ensure I could begin my duties promptly in the morning." Mrs. Carter appeared behind her husband, observing the man with curiosity. "It's fine," she reassured her husband. "His background has been thoroughly vetted." And so, Jonathan Blake began his tenure at the Carter residence. But from that moment on, the family's life would never be the same. One night, Emily woke up thirsty and went downstairs to get water. As she walked past the library, she noticed the faint glow of a lamp still on. Curious, she peeked through the slightly open door. Inside, Jonathan was standing by the bookshelf, flipping through an old leather-bound journal. On the desk lay several family photographs and private documents. Terrified, Emily quickly retreated to her room and told her mother about it the next morning. "He was probably organizing the library," Mrs. Carter dismissed, laughing. "You're letting your imagination run wild." But more unsettling incidents followed. Jonathan seemed to know too much about the family. During a conversation, William offhandedly mentioned his late brother, Harold. Jonathan responded, "Ah, yes, Harold. The one who died in a car accident in 1998. William froze. "How do you know about that?" he demanded. Jonathan only smiled faintly and said, "It was in your family records. But those records were never shared with anyone outside the family." William froze. "How do you know about that?" he demanded. Jonathan only smiled faintly and said, "It was in your family records." But Thosa determined to uncover the truth, William called the agency that had sent Jonathan. To his shock, they replied, "We have no record of a Jonathan Blake. Are you sure you contacted us?" Confronting Jonathan, William's voice was firm. "Who are you, really?" Records were never shared with anyone outside the family. Jonathan sighed, his usual composed demeanor softening. "Mr. Carter, if I told you that I have known your family for a long time, would you believe me?" "What are you talking about?" William asked, a mix of anger and fear in his voice. Jonathan explained, "Years ago, I worked as a private investigator. Your late brother, Harold, hired me before his passing. He wanted me to watch over your family not for harm, but to protect you from losing sight of what truly matters. Harold feared that the family's secrets and burdens would be forgotten, and he asked me to ensure that didn't happen." William was stunned. "This is absurd. Harold's been gone for decades." Jonathan nodded solemnly. "He's gone, but his message remains. And I have something he wanted you to have." Jonathan handed William a small wooden box. "Inside are letters Harold wrote for you. They contain the truths he wanted you to remember." When William opened the box, he found handwritten notes filled with childhood memories, reminders of family values, and heartfelt advice. Harold's words were a stark reminder of how William had become consumed by work, neglecting his family in the process. Jonathan's job was done. He left the next morning, leaving the Carter family with Harold's parting gift and a renewed sense of purpose. William Carter began spending more time with his wife and daughter, cherishing the moments he once overlooked. The family's bonds grew stronger, thanks to a butler who was far more than he seemed. Lesson: sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't wealth or success, but the love and memories we share with our family.